Hello, 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 and welcome to a new edition of She Talks Business. And this is one where we turn the tables. And my dear, dear, dear friend, longtime friend, sometimes client, most often colleague, my co-conspirator in many of the exciting things that I've done in my business over the year, Samantha Moonsammy is here with us today. And I love this woman so much. She has been a bright light in my life for so many years. And yesterday, she sent me a text message with her list of questions. And I said, no, I'm not looking at them. I don't want to know. I trust you. You can ask me anything. And so you've heard the professional introduction that I recorded at the very, very beginning. But what I want you to know, aside from being a professional rock star, this human being has the biggest heart of anyone I know. And she is one of the most generous, kindest spirits on the planet. So Samantha, thank you for being here and for saying yes to doing this with me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. It is so neat. I'm going to tell you a little secret, Lisa. I think I've told you this before, but every summer, Matt gives me quiet time in the pool and I just go swimming. And I miss you. And I put on your podcast on my Bluetooth speaker and I swim like listening to your voice. And I was like, she can't be here with me. I miss her. So I'm just going to listen to her while I swim. So like, that's kind of my quiet fun time. So
Oh, I love that.
happy to be here and actually get to ask you questions and I get to relive this moment so many times again as I listen. So happy to be here. And I have so many questions. So I want to just like get right in there. I've had the privilege to get to know like your layers and your authentic self. And I really just want to dive in and go behind the curtain with Lisa today and just, let's ask the questions that, people are probably curious about. I mean, you are a very open person. You are like, you're a great storyteller and all of that, but let's just start like right with like everyday life reflections of what happens in Lisa Larter's life. Like, can you tell me about some of your daily habits? Like, what are some of your habits or routines you consider essential in your personal and your professional success?
Well, I'm one of those people that has a morning routine, and my morning routine varies. So most mornings I get up and I either walk or I go to the gym, and then I have some quiet time for me. And during that quiet time for me, I have a cup of coffee and decaf coffee, and I either spend time reading or I spend time writing. For the longest time, I used to read every single morning, especially when I was running thought readers. And this year, I'm not running thought readers. And so that time that I used to use reading has been redirected to writing. And so I've been writing a lot more content for my website, for my newsletter, for social media. And I've also been working on a book that I'm making progress on. And so redirecting that time that way is good for me. Professionally, I think my routines are kind of funny. I'm a little bit OCD about my calendar. I've got specific days of the week that I work with my team. I've got specific days of the week that I work with my clients. And then I've got a day, every Friday is my catch-all day where I get to do the things that I need to do. Sometimes they're personal, sometimes they're professional, but as a norm, I don't usually schedule any client calls on Friday. I use a old-fashioned paper journal. And I know a lot of people think that's crazy because I'm a pretty tech savvy individual, but there is something that happens to me with a pen and paper and my mind. My brain remembers things when I write it down. And so I will typically take my journal, my day timer, and I'll write the appointments that I have that day in it. And then I'll write the things that I want to do. And when I'm talking to people, random things come up and I'll write them on the journal. Most people know I'm a big card writer. And so people wonder sometimes, oh my God, where'd you get the ideas? Like, how do you remember that stuff? It's because I write it down. I write it down and I'm like card. And I learned something from you many years ago. I think it was one of our first Oprah events together. You write a little check, a little box next to things that you need to do. And so you can put a check box beside it. So I stole that from you, and that's what I do. And so I can go back through and I can look for things with the little box, and then I know those are the things that I need to do. So those are, some of my personal and professional habits. I really try to stop working, between 4 and 5. I mean, I'm on my phone and I do stuff, but I try to get out of my office because I'm often, in my office working early in the morning because I can get up early much easier than I can stay up late. And yeah, those are some of my habits, a nice bottle of wine in the evening. That's another habit.
Oh my gosh. So even though I haven't seen you in real life for a few years now, I can picture you writing, and you have beautiful handwriting, and the boxes, I still do the boxes. So isn't that cool how we all kind of hack some habits from each other? And
Yeah.
that's so cool. So thank you so much. And yeah, speaking of which, so we used to literally be neighbors. I can drive 20 minutes and see you, and I can picture you with that glass of red wine at the end of the day, snuggling with your dogs, and like, you know what I mean? And Paul like grilling some food. Like, so now you're in the US, and that's really cool. Like, can you tell the audience a little bit, like, why did you decide to move, and what surprised you about moving to a new country? And is there anything that you miss about Canada?
Wow, that's a really big question, and it's not one that I've answered publicly. So this is kind of a bit of a vulnerable story. So I'm going to share it with you. Uh, let's see, what year are we? I think it was 2021. We decided to move to the United States. In 2020, we got our E1 visas, which allowed us to stay here for 2 years. And I mean, it's really kind of a fluke. We got our E1 visas in January of 2020, and then basically all hell broke loose with COVID.
Right.
And in the spring of 2021, we were traveling back from Florida to Calgary. And at that time, everybody had to get a PCR test before they got on a plane. And so we got our PCR tests like good little Canadians. But at that time, the Canadian government had decided that when you came, not only did you have to have a PCR test before you got on the plane, you had to have one when you got off the plane, and you had to be quarantined in a hotel for 3 days while you waited for your PCR test to come back. And I didn't really like being forced to quarantine in a hotel. I kind of got it. I understood there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. But what really upset me about that experience was I wasn't allowed to take my dogs out for a pee without a security guard escorting me to and from my room. So we're staying at this hotel kind of in the middle of nowhere. What am I going to do? Run away? And so I was really offended that like as a free country, as a free Canadian, I'm being forced to quarantine, or I have to pay a $5,000 fine. And now I'm not even allowed to take my dogs outside for a pee without calling downstairs and having an escort. And then, of course, like all travelers, we had to quarantine for 2 weeks in our home. And we were only allowed out once midway through for a third PCR test. And during that 2 week period, we had 2 visits at our home to make sure we were actually there. And we had to show proof of ID that we had not left our home. And that really upset me and disturbed me. And it felt like a violation of my rights as a free person. I wasn't allowed to go for a walk in my neighborhood. If they came and I wasn't there, it was another $3,000 fine. And so in September of 2021, we decided that based on Canada being open, closed, open, closed, open, closed, we didn't want to be on lockdown in the wintertime. We owned a home in Florida. We said, let's just go to Florida and ride this thing out for 2 years. And if if there's quarantines and lockdowns, at least we can go outside in the backyard in Florida and it will be nice. So we decided to do that. And because we were going to be out of the country for 2 years, I knew that there were tax implications. So I hired an international tax attorney and advisor to find out what I needed to do to be compliant on taxes in both Canada and the US. And I just made this offhanded comment to her. Her name is Sunita, and she's been on this podcast too. And I said, it'd be so much easier if we could just live in the United States. And she's like, well, wait a minute. Would you like to live in the United States? I'm like, well, yeah, I'd love to live in the United States. It'd be great if we could live here. So she introduced me to an immigration attorney, and he advised us on creating a US entity in that would be a subsidiary company of our Canadian company. And we were able to apply for an L1A business visa, which then allowed us to stay for 7 years. And after you do your L1A business visa, after you renew it the first year, your business can then petition for you to apply for a green card. So we went through the process of petitioning to get green cards, and the green card process normally takes 12 to 18 months. It took us 6 months to get our green cards. And so, it was a really emotional experience, Samantha. I have to tell you, I went to the Everblades hockey game in the winter of 2021, 2022, right? Like, probably like November, December of 2021, maybe January 2022. And I remember standing because they were playing the national anthem, but they were playing the Newfoundland team and they were singing the Canadian anthem. This is like junior A, college team. And I was overcome with sadness. And I'm standing there with tears running down my face because I felt like I had to leave the country. It wasn't like one of those things where I was like, oh, giddy up, let's go, let's move. It was one of those things we had talked about. But in that moment, I felt really, really sad that all of this stuff had happened and made me kind of feel like I needed to leave. So it's been quite a journey because during the whole visa process and green card process, I wasn't allowed to leave the country. And now that I have my green card, I'm planning my return home. So what do I miss? I miss my friends and family, of course. I miss that I can't just, jump in my car and drive up and see my mom on the weekend if I want to. I do miss the mountains. We owned a home in Vermeer, which is in the mountains in BC, and the views were stunning, and I loved it there. So when we sold that, I was really sad because I really liked it a lot. But other than that, I like it here. I enjoy living here. I enjoy the people that I meet in the United States. I enjoy the opportunities that are in the United States. And my immigration attorney, Mo, I remember feeling a little nervous, like we're investing all this money and energy and effort into doing this. What if it doesn't go the way we want it? And he said to me, he said, Lisa, it's going to go the way we want it because my daughter needs strong women role models like you living in this country. And so it's going to work out. And it did. And a couple of weeks ago, he texted me and he said to me, my niece is a writer and I told her about you and I told her about your book. Would you mind mentoring her a little bit and, sharing some of what you know with her? And I was just like such a full circle moment because now I am here and now I am able to give back to some of these young women who are, trying to find their way professionally too.
Lisa, I didn't know some of those details. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And it's true. Now you're like a North American ambassador for women. It's not just, yeah. So I'm happy that the US gets a piece of you because certainly like myself and so many others in your communities have definitely benefited from your friendship and coaching, which leads me to the next question. I remember when I visited you many years ago in Florida, you were looking for a mentor and you're like, I really need to find the right, people to surround myself with. And I've noticed recently that you're part of Ali Brown's The Trust. I would love to know like what your experience is at. And can I just say, I remember your house in Ottawa and seeing Ali Brown, like I think you had DVDs
I did.
on your bookshelf. And I particularly remember that. So, and I mean, we've done so much professional development before and we've been to, so many great sessions. So now, yeah. So tell me about Ali Brown and The Trust and, how has that been like for you to have your community of leaders for you?
It's great. So, Ali Brown was the very first online program I ever bought back when they shipped you a binder and DVDs. And when she texted me personally and said, I'm starting this thing, and I think that you would be great to be part of it, which is The Trust. It's a networking organization for women who have 7 and 8 figure businesses. I said yes. And that was in 2020. And we meet 2 to 3 times a year. And the women in that community are absolutely fantastic. I love being part of that community. I have developed great friendships with women in that community. Some of them have become clients of mine. Um, and it just, every time I go there and I'm hanging out with people, I learn so much. And, you know, I think that a lot of times women are not as generous in terms of sharing what they know with each other. There's something that holds us back, and I don't know if it's how we were raised, how we've been conditioned, but a lot of times women kind of feel like if it is to be, it's up to me. And one of the things that I really love and appreciate about being part of the trust is every woman there is so generous with what they know. And I think there's a lot of elevating each other that happens as a result of that. The other place that I've gone for mentorship in the last little while is strategic coach. And I've been in strategic coach for almost 2 years now. I am in the 10X program. And it's interesting because most of the people at strategic coach are men. So I'm going to say it's like 90% men, maybe 10% women. But again, I'm learning so much from not only the way that they facilitate the training and the interactions and the thinking, but I'm also, I'm learning by observing how they run their business and thinking about ways that I can improve how I run my business by virtue of modeling, not copying, but modeling. Like, one of the things that I really love is when I am in a session, I've noticed a pattern, because you have a coach, you have a leader in the session. And the pattern that I notice is they typically spend 20 minutes teaching you a concept, and then they give you 20 minutes to think about that concept and write and answer questions and do some self-discovery. And then they put you in a group for 20 minutes and you talk about it with peers. And I love that because it's learning, it's thinking, and it's dialoguing. And I've really tried to incorporate that into some of my own events and coaching. And I'm even moving towards more group oriented coaching programs because I just find there's so much value in having that discussion with other like-minded people.
I love that. And can I just say, when I think of you, I think of learning 100%, so some people might not know you finished your, like, I think your highest formal education is high school, but I always say, like, you're one of the smartest people I know. And you might not know this, but I have small children, and I met you after I'd done so much formal education. So I did university, I did my master's. So I'm like the opposite, right? Like the book girl. But then I met you and I met other people around us, and I was like, wow, like this is, now I know I'm a lifelong learner. But
Mhm.
what I'm seeing for me of unintrinsic wow, which you brought to me, was like, let's make sure in the elementary schools and the high schools that some of these core values, like this applied learning that you're talking about, this coaching happens then, so that people can see, like, just bring it to life. And I
Mhm.
just want to say that I am that advocate, because I want my kids to be able to have very early access to, like, all the things that I learned from you, like from my late 20s onwards. So go
Yeah, there's
do
many
it.
paths to learning, many paths to learning. I don't have a high school diploma, and I, I'm okay with that. I don't feel like I'm uneducated. I feel like I am a constant life learner. Learning is one of my strengths, and I think that in today's world, we all have access to learning. I think sometimes we have to be careful how we learn, especially with new tools and technology like AI. Sometimes AI doesn't tell us the truth. Sometimes AI makes things up. I'm sure it's going to continue to get better as it goes along, but we all have to learn to be curious and to look for uh, multiple ways of learning things so that our learning isn't biased. Learning can be biased if you are only following one source of learning. And I mean, it's the same with watching the news, right? So it's important that when you're doing your learning, that you're learning from multiple facets so that you can really expand your thinking.
I love that. So you might laugh at this next question, but many of us learn from, like, Lisa Larter quotes. Okay. So I'm going to name you two Lisa Larter quotes that come up all the time, like years and years. I don't even know when you said it. Okay. So I'm going to say them, and I want you to tell the audience, like, why you think they're famous Lisa quotes. So the two that come up is, the first one, why free is too expensive. And my latest favorite, you can't ride two horses with one ass.
So why free is too expensive? That's not even my quote. That's Paul's quote. He would be like, free is too expensive. And so I started saying it, and it's so true. It's actually one of my most popular blog posts is why free is too expensive. And I do believe free is too expensive because when you are constantly peddling free stuff, you attract people with no money. And so from a business perspective, you need to have a strategy around where free takes someone. Otherwise, free just costs you time, money, energy, and effort, and it doesn't actually pay back dividends. I would rather be the most expensive option than the cheapest option or the free option at anything. And I think a lot of times people give things away for free because they don't have confidence or belief that what they have is valuable. I had a strategy session with someone yesterday, and that individual told me a service that they were charging $900 for. And I told them they should be charging $2,500 for that service. And they looked at me with big eyes like, I'm not you. I can't do that. I'm like, no, you're not me, but you can do that. And so they had to go see a client yesterday afternoon, and they agreed to pitch the same service for $2,000. They texted me and said they said yes to 2K without even blinking an eyelash. And I was like, oh, that's wonderful, isn't it? We, as women especially, too often undervalue what we do. And so if it is free, it needs to be a freaking download. It's not your time, because your time is worth money. And then, I'm laughing at the riding two horses with one ass because, right now I've kind of got my finger in a few different things that I'm not talking about yet. And I was thinking about that this morning. So here's what I think. You need to ride one horse. There's another expression, and you can't chase two bunnies and catch either one. The problem with creative entrepreneurs is we have a million ideas. And if you don't stick with an idea long enough to get success, you're always going to be chasing the next idea. But when you stick with an idea long enough to get success, you then have the capacity to go after another idea. And so the reason I'm constantly saying to people is you can't chase two horses, or you can't ride two horses with one ass, is because I see people never finish. It's like they can't execute and deliver on the one idea that they have. So it's not about not being able to have multiple ideas. It's about finishing. It's about finishing what you started. It's about going the distance with the first idea before you distract yourself with the second idea. Because the same thing is true. Our self-confidence, imposter syndrome, self-esteem, all gets in the way of sometimes finishing what we start. And we find it easier to go start something new than to deal with the rejection of that thing we wanted to do not working. And so we hold back because we're afraid that if we give it our all, maybe our all isn't enough. And guess what? Most people will never know because they don't stick with it long enough to find out.
100%. Oh, well, I think that was like the money moment, Tina. If you're listening to this podcast, like I'm telling you, like it comes up year after year. I remember when that blog post first came out, and it still comes up. And yeah, I quote you all the time on those two. So thank you for reminding me the stories behind it. So back to you're a forever learner. I've read so many books thanks to you. I've read your books and I've enjoyed so much. So people, if you're listening to this podcast, Lisa reads all the time. Let's hear what is on Lisa's summer 2024 reading list. And if people are new to Lisa, what would be 3 of your all-time books that you would say to someone like you must read?
Oh, so I'm just finishing up Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, and I love it. It's a really, really great book on negotiation, communication, really, really great. I just ordered the book, A Company of One, which is why better is basically it's why better is better than bigger. And that is on my reading list right now. I've got books on the shelf behind me. I started reading Gino Wickman's book, Shine, which I love. Gino Wickman is the guy who wrote Traction and Rocket Fuel. But this book is a little bit more, I'm going to say heart-centered. It's more about the entrepreneur who's basically accomplished all these things, but something still feels missing. And so it's a really great self-discovery book. Those would be three that I would say are on my reading list right now. All-time favorite books, number one, hands down, is The Ultimate Blueprint for a Successful Business by Keith Cunningham. I'm probably going to read that book again this year. I love that book so much. If you don't know who Keith Cunningham is, you may have heard of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, written by Robert Kiyosaki. Well, Robert Kiyosaki's rich dad was Keith Cunningham. So if you really want to know what the rich dad has to say, go to the source. Keith Cunningham's books are amazing. Second all-time favorite book. Oh, geez. I'm up in Georgia right now, and so I don't have all my books with me to look at. Psychology of Money. I love that book by Morgan Housel. Super, super, super great book in terms of how we think about money and what is actually enough. And then third all-time favorite. Oh, gosh. That's a hard one for me. Third all-time favorite. What books do I come back to? I have read The Alchemist probably a dozen times. And, The Alchemist isn't a business book. It's like this fable. And it just reminds me that sometimes the path that you take isn't going to take you where you need to go. And that the road, like the detours, often take you where you're meant to go. And so I just love the story. I love the journey, and I love how everything turned out better than it was supposed to by virtue of a bunch of things going wrong. And sometimes when we're in the middle of a bunch of things going wrong in our business, we don't realize that those things are happening for us, not to us.
Ooh, I love it so much. Yeah, The Alchemist is definitely on my list too. I can actually remember the first time I read it, 2001. I was in India, and just like on the side of the road, they had like books and books and books. And I picked that up for the first time. I was in my early 20s, and it's something I go back to every year. And from that book, it reminded me like we're all on a destiny's life path, and your destiny's not going to miss you. You just don't know when it's going to happen.
Yes.
You can't miss it. And I think that I understand that super clear now. I didn't necessarily know that when I was impatient when I was younger, but that's why I agree with you, the full circle moments that come from that book. And the other two I haven't read yet. So I'm going to take a look at that. So thank you so much. So speaking on the topics of books, I know you're writing a book right now, and I'm in the world of publishing and books. And I always ask people this about their book hook. So if you're willing to share what you're writing about right now, like what is your book promise this time, Lisa? And like what makes your approach on this topic unique?
The book promises I'm going to show you 8 ways you can make money with ease. So basically 8 proven strategies for generating money in your business. That's what this book is all about. Because while people know me for marketing is a function of business growth. And if you have the best marketing in the world, but you don't have a good understanding of how to sell and how to do things to close more business and really scale your business, then you can just end up burnt out because you can have too many customers because your prices are too low, for example, and that's not a sustainable model. So this next book is really about making money because it's really what I'm most passionate about. And I used to think that was so shallow, and it's not. It's like money makes the world go round. And when you have more money, you have more freedom, you have more options, you have more choices, you can hire people, you can give back to the economy, you can do so much more when you're not stressed about money. And Tara I. Trent's book, The Awakened Woman, is another one of my favorites. And she asks the question, what breaks your heart? And what breaks my heart is seeing really hardworking business owners that can't afford to pay themselves. It breaks my heart to see people work so hard in their business and they haven't cracked the code on how to actually make money. And so I'm hoping that my book is going to help not only people who haven't cracked the code, but people who have to make even more. And believe me, I do think that making money and making a difference can go hand in hand.
Oh, it 100% does. And if I could just say from a woman in business, when you put that power into a woman and what it can do for her family, how she, like, women generally think more from a communal perspective. They hire people, they're investing, like when you say
Mhm.
giving back to help feed other families, like you have members on your team that like their salaries like are
Mhm.
helping so many people. Like it's so powerful. And it's still, even in 2024, like we know the numbers, it's very, very sad still. Like this, like the world needs this knowledge. And you also need the posture to say, like, I deserve this. And I think that you do that too. Like, not only do you teach the money habits, you're kind of like, no, you go get it. Like you deserve it. You deserve to make more money. You deserve to pay yourself, first, and all of those things.
Yeah,
So
2% of women have companies that generate seven figures or more. 2% of women.
love.
Like, we need to change that number. And if we just sit back and we look at how men do it, there's so much we can learn. And it's not that we need to all behave like men, but guys tend to be more collaborative. They help each other out. They invite each other on their podcasts, and they do shout out, they do all this stuff to help each other. Men aren't afraid to charge more. Like, there's so many things that men do to make their businesses more successful that women can do. And so I don't think that my strategies are male dominant. I think they are strategies that anyone can use, but I would love to see more women get comfortable with money, get comfortable with numbers, get comfortable charging what they're worth, get comfortable with strategies that can help them generate more revenue. To me, the most powerful skill that you can have as a business owner is the ability to generate income on demand. I can go to my mailing list and I can send something out right now. I can go to Facebook and post something right now, and I can generate income today if I need to. That's a skill, and it's a powerful one that everyone should know how to do.
Yes, I love it. So success leaves clues. So this is, if Lisa's new to you, you're right. It's all there. It's all there. And I love how open and transparent you are. So, let's talk about more things about productivity. I love that you're still using the old school journal and the pen. I agree. It's so powerful. But what else are you using? Any tools or apps in your everyday life that you like for productivity and efficiency, or even just like personally? I would love to know some knowledge transfer there.
I read a book not too long ago called Coming Up for Air by Nick Sonnenberg. It was a really, really great book. And one of the things that he talks about is inbox zero. And I used to do some things that I thought were pretty good for managing my inbox, but now I'm pretty relentless about how I manage my inbox. Like, it either gets dealt with, it gets deferred, or it gets deleted. And I think that's, just my mindset around how I manage my email is an important thing for me. Tools that I use, I mean, our team uses Asana to manage the work that needs to get done. We use chat to communicate with each other. So we don't actually use email internally. We use email to only communicate with clients. We use chat to communicate with each other, and we use Asana to arrange the work that needs to be done. And creating that structure, which is what is recommended in that book, has significantly changed the amount of um, overwhelm that comes from having 100 emails in your inbox and 100 notifications in Asana. And like, now every channel has a purpose, and it's easier for everyone to manage based on those purposes. Other
But
tools,
what chat function, is there a chat app that you're using, or is it in
we're
a,
using Google Chat, but we're thinking about moving to Slack.
okay.
And the reason that I'm thinking about moving to Slack is because Slack actually integrates with apps better than Google Chat. So I can integrate Asana with Slack, and I can actually update my Asana task in Slack
Mm.
instead of having to leave Slack and to task switch, context switch. I could do it right there. The other reason that I like Slack is I can schedule messages on Slack, whereas on Google Chat I can't. And so I try really hard to be respectful of my team after hours. It's easy for me to schedule an email, but now if I want to communicate an update, I can't schedule it in chat. And I would like to be able to schedule it so that they don't get the update until the next morning. So, as an entrepreneur, I work all kinds of hours. Like, sometimes I'm up at 5 and I'm working, and sometimes I'm working at 10 o'clock at night. It depends on when ideas come to you. And so I want to be able to work when I want to work without feeling like I'm making other people feel like they have to work when I'm working. So those are some tools that I'm using. Um, I use Google Docs for a lot of things because I can work asynchronously that way. So when we do strategy work with clients, we always have a Google Doc, and there's three of us that work in that doc asynchronously, and we use commenting and things to make it easy for us to work together. When I'm writing content for my team, for my blog, newsletter, and stuff, I put it into a Google Doc, so they have a task to check that doc daily, and then they can pull the content that's there. So I'm a big fan of figuring out how to work asynchronously as much as you can. Obviously, I use Zoom, and I have to tell you, I have Zoom fatigue. I'm so sick of being on Zoom calls all day long. It's not even funny. Like, I had a phone conversation with somebody this week, and it was so nice to just talk to somebody on the phone and not be on Zoom. So I am using Zoom, but I am at a stage in my business where I want to do more group in-person work and less one-on-one Zoom work. And so you're going to see me release a new coaching program in the next little while, where we're going to meet 3 to 4 times a year as a group in person. Oh my God, get on a plane, go meet in person. And it's going to be a day and a half of learning, and a half day that is experiential. So I want to incorporate some fun into these quarterly meetings where I bring people together, because people work so hard. I want them to have a little bit of a fun experience. So I want to take people to Nashville, and I want to spend an afternoon in these honky tonk bars listening to country music. I want to take people to Georgia and do a wine tour. Like, I want to do things that create memorable experiences, because let's face it, you're still connecting and building relationships with the people in the program when you're doing something fun.
Oh, it's so true. I'm so happy to see the in-person events come back. I mean, that's our jam. Like, we have so many beautiful memories
Yeah.
of doing that. And, when I look back at them, almost, they happen so fast, the way everything synced up together. Like, particularly, like, when you think of the change in the media and how, like, there's been so much cuts, like, to journalists and stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
you and I did a takeover on, like, the midday show, like the day after Oprah
Yeah.
Ottawa, and we filled a live audience and we had a conversation. Like, that was like beyond my wildest dreams. Like, I didn't even pitch that. Like, there were so many things I was pitching to make all of that come true. And it just goes to show, like, the power of community, and like the power of just like the possibility,
I know.
And because if I were to tell someone now, like, go do that, it's like, well, is that even possible? Well, yes, it is possible. Like, I did it. You know what
But
I mean?
imagine if we'd listened to the email that we got telling us we shouldn't be doing this. You remember when we had that big idea for Oprah in Ottawa, and there were people out there that thought what we were doing was wrong and that we shouldn't be doing it. And we took that as an opportunity to, basically liaise with Oprah's team, and we blew it up even bigger. It was just so amazing. So, the lesson is, when somebody tells you you shouldn't be doing something, what they're really saying is that they can't do it.
And that still happens to me. I still remember that moment when I was watching the news and they said Oprah was coming to Ottawa, and there was like something in my stomach that just like went like this. And I knew that something was brewing inside of me that like was part of my gift and my legacy to the world. And the major download was, she's never coming back to Ottawa, girl. Like, if you want to do something to really, mark her legacy, mark like the impact she's had on people of her like 30 plus like television career of helping and healing people, like, you've got to do it now. And I just want to say, like, that was such a memorable moment to do that with you, and to also, we had so many beautiful, like, like incredible moments like that. And I think that actually goes to my next question, which is about legacy. So, as you were there with me, you're at my dad's funeral. Like, my dad passes away in 2018. It was a few months after I got married, and I was also 5 months pregnant with Beckham at the time. And since then, I mean, I get like, he's actually closer to me now, ironically. Like, I feel him so much in my presence. And, my publishing company idea also came like after his passing. And then every single day I get this memory of my dad driving me to the library when I was like 6 years old. And I had empty bags and I fill up the bags and go back home with all these books. And they bought me a nightlight. I used to go to bed early and just like read. Like little did I know that I would then now be a book publisher, you know? So I feel him in the work that I do in such a strong way. And I know I'm on my right path. Like share with me, like you are so clear on your path. You want to empower people, you know, particularly you've done a lot for women and you know, getting them to like raise more money in their business and pay themselves and all of that. Like tell me about your legacy, because I know you're also a very like thoughtful, empathetic person. As you always say, like none of us are coming out of this alive, you know, like another quote, you know, but like what does legacy mean to you? Like because you're at a point where like you've achieved so many things, like you're making the money, you've got the life, like so now it's like it is legacy and like your why. Can you go deeper for me right now and share with me like some of that?
I don't know, Sam. It's a hard question for me. I just wrote a post about walking here in the neighborhoods of Georgia. And where we are, we're in the Blue Ridge Mountain areas. So it's beautiful here. There's trees everywhere. And when you go for a walk, there are big ass hills, like really big hills. And they're kicking my butt right now. My legs are not that strong. And there's this one hill that we walk down. And when I look up at that hill, it's like, oh my God, it's so hard to climb. And I'm going to be so winded and so out of breath. And the other day when I was climbing that hill, instead of looking at the top, which I usually do, I just looked down and I just kept taking one step, one step, one step, one step, one step. And the next thing you knew, I was at the top of the hill and it wasn't so bad. And so I think when I think about legacy, I'm not really thinking about what are people going to think of me, you know, 130 years from now or 50 years from now, 60 years from now when I die. I'm more thinking about how am I making an impact today? What good can I do today? How can I help somebody today? You know, I talked about the woman who made $1,100 more on one thing yesterday. To me, that's legacy. She will always remember that I gave her the courage and permission and saw what her potential was to ask for that money. And so I feel like it's just a bunch of little seeds that are being planted. And I don't know what the garden is going to look like. I think sometimes I still suffer from imposter syndrome. Like sometimes I still think I'm not good enough or my work isn't good enough. I spoke at the trust the last time I was there. And Ali asked me to speak about marketing and marketing assets because I have this belief about marketing and how we should all be building assets online. And I remember thinking, wow, like my peers in this group are 7 and 8 figure businesswomen. They know this stuff. Who am I to teach them this? And I really was like, is it going to be good enough? Like, is what I know enough? And Kate Northrup came up to me at the end of my presentation and said, I would have paid for that. That's how good that was. Another colleague was sitting next to me at dinner and she said, Ali should have paid you for what you did today. It was that good. Because of course it's a peer thing. So none of us are getting paid. It's not like, you know, I didn't get paid, somebody else did. But it was the point of someone recognizing it and acknowledging my contribution that mattered to me, because going into it, I was afraid it wasn't good enough. And so I think, you know, we all worry that what we have isn't good enough. And when somebody shines a light on us and says, hey, look here, you are good enough. It is good enough. You can charge more. You can do more. This is awesome. Then that to me is like kind of the legacy I want to be remembered for. I want to be remembered for the person that like pushed people into their potential because I saw it. But I don't know how you define that in terms of legacy. It's just something I naturally do every day in a bunch of different conversations with people. I can't help myself. I can be, I don't know, in a restaurant talking to a server, and the next thing you know, I'm telling them, you should be doing this in your life. Like, it's just one of those things where I feel like I have a gift for seeing the potential in people that they don't think is enough and showing them that it is.
Well, you just actually answered your question. And I can tell you those seeds in that garden are planted internationally. I was running into Walmart, probably buying diapers for my kid, and this woman stops me in the parking lot and said, "The last time I saw you, we were at a Lisa Larter event, for a book." And then she was sharing with me about her business and what you're doing. Like, that is what you're doing. And that is certainly your legacy. Like, you are rising all of us. I always said I didn't know you when I first started my first company, but I better believe when I got that download that I'm supposed to start a book publishing company, well, it's completely accidental. I started just writing for myself, and Facebook told me, like, "Oh, can you help me with my book? Can you help me with the book?" So that's how I started. But I was very clear before I put anything out into the world, I'm hiring Lisa and she's going to help me set this up the right way. And you really did. And when, we're going to look back at this, I'm going to look back at this moment years from now with the exponential success that I'm seeing growing. And it is because of you. And it is because of some foundational skills you planted in me and what you planted in so many others. So I just want to say that is really your legacy. And it's very, very, I'm so happy to be so like deeply immersed in it and to watch other people grow too. And I'm so excited for the live events. I'm going to see you in Toronto, and that it's true, there's magic, there's nothing that can replace that. And I'm so glad that Kate and the others, like, you know what I mean, showed you that you claimed your space at that event. And like, it's so, what you have to say matters. Yeah, I just love you so much. I've got two more questions. They're just lighthearted and fun to like round it all off. But what's something about you that most people might be surprised to learn?
I'm shy. I'm shy. When I walk into a room full of strangers, I'm shy. I am like intimidated to walk up and break into conversation with people. If I walk into a room and it's my event, I'm not shy because people are there for me. And so I put my Showtime face on, my retail girl comes into, action, and it's really easy for me to interact that way. But when I walk into a place on my own, I'm shy. And a lot of people don't know that about me.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. And the last question, what's still on your bucket list that you haven't achieved yet?
Mm, I haven't been to Italy yet. I still really want to go to Italy. That's one thing that's on my bucket list. Um, what else is on my bucket list? I think I need a new bucket list. It's funny. I write things down and then it happens, and then I have to like rethink what are the
And
things that I that I really want. So I would say, more travel, definitely. Italy is something that is on my bucket list. I haven't been there. I really want to go to Napa and go to wine country because I haven't done that yet. Um, I want to build a network of short-term rental properties. That's, kind of on my horizon over the next couple of years, something that I really want to do. What else? I can't really think of anything else right now.
oh, those are big ones though. And I see you doing them all. So you're right. It's a reminder. I love that your bucket list has been like checked with those little square boxes. And Lisa, it's been such a pleasure to spend time with you today.
Sammy, thank you. Thank you for the thoughtful questions. It has been wonderful having this conversation with you. I feel like you and I could talk for hours. And I can't wait to see you live in person in Toronto for the Archangel event. It's going to be so much fun to have you there with everyone. And, what I love about those events the most, I was just telling this to someone, is, we all watch speakers and we all take away key learning. And then when we sit in a room together and we talk about the learning, it's like you just amplified your learning because no two people took the same thing away. And sometimes the greatest learning comes from the discussions that happen after the event, not what happened at the event. So I can't wait to see you and do that with you. So thank you for being here. And to our audience, thank you so much for listening. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. And, if you want to publish a book, you got to check Samantha Moonsammy out. You can find her at Lucky Book Publishing, and I will make sure that the links to her social and her website are all in the show notes and on my website. And that is all for now. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Samantha, for being such a great host.
Thank you.